The film begins in 1914 at a location near the South Atlantic Ocean, where a ship is seen sailing. On board is a man whose name is not yet known, seen conversing with the ship's captain. This young man is heading to an island where he is apparently assigned to work as a weather observer. Once they reach the island, the captain and a few of his crew escort the young man to a house where he will be staying. From there, the captain gives him a tour of the area, including a lighthouse not far from their location. However, upon arriving, the young man senses something strange about the lighthouse. The walls surrounding the building are lined with sharp wooden stakes, as if to keep something out, or in. Inside the tower, they find a man named Gruner who is still asleep. Once he wakes, the captain asks him about the weather officer who is supposed to be picked up and replaced by this newcomer. Gruner claims that the former officer died a long time ago from typhoid and that his body was lost at sea while trying to swim. Sensing something odd about Gruner, the captain offers the young man a chance to return with him. However, the young man refuses, determined to stay and carry out his duty. As a precaution, the captain gives him a pistol and warns him to be careful. After all, he'll be alone on this remote island for 12 months. On his first night, after finishing settling into the house, the young man finds a diary belonging to the previous weather officer, named Aldor Vigeland. As he reads through the diary, he finds numerous drawings of sea creatures, including a photo of a beautiful woman who has died. At the end of the diary, he also comes across a strange drawing resembling a mysterious creature. The next morning, he begins his work predicting the weather at the beach. While there, he notices something strange, neatly stacked seashells arranged within a circle of stones. While recording the wind direction, he uses his binoculars to look toward the lighthouse. He sees Gruner, seemingly just waking up, but unintentionally, he also spots a shadowy, human-like figure standing atop the tower. That night, strange things begin to happen. He hears a mysterious sound coming from outside his front door. At first, he thinks it's Gruner, but when he approaches the door, a hand suddenly appears from underneath it. He steps on it in panic. Realizing he's in danger, he hides in the basement, holding a knife. Peeking through a gap in the floorboards, he's shocked to see a terrifying eye staring back at him. Reacting quickly, he stabs with his knife and a pained roar echoes from the creature. The young man manages to survive the night. Still confused by what happened, he visits the lighthouse the next morning to ask Gruner about it. Unfortunately, Gruner refuses to open the door and instead throws water on him while shouting that he shouldn't be there. Not wanting to experience another night like the previous one, the young man returns to his house to build barricades around it for protection. During this moment, he unexpectedly finds a rifle along with a supply of ammunition, seemingly enough to survive the night. When night falls, he prepares himself with the rifle. From the beach, he sees hundreds of strange creatures emerging from between the rocks. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of them, he lights fires in the areas he had prepared around his house. The flames scare the creatures and they flee in panic. Unfortunately, the fire spreads to the wooden walls of the house and the entire building catches fire. The next morning, frustrated and out of patience, the young man decides to go to the lighthouse. This time he waits secretly for Gruner to come out. But as he's watching, suddenly a creature appears beside him and attacks. Before he can shoot, Gruner shows up and tells him not to shoot the creature, because according to Gruner, it is not dangerous. Gruner agrees to make a deal, but only if the young man shares his supplies and ammunition, originally from the young man's burned house. Gruner begins calling him friend, and the two of them take some provisions back to the lighthouse. Friend then falls unconscious and remains so for 2 days. When he wakes, he sees the harmless creature licking the burn wounds on his hand, and astonishingly, the pain vanishes. Gruner explains that this creature is female and won't attack because to him, she is like a pet. That night, Gruner asks Friend to prepare for another attack. When the lighthouse light is turned on, Gruner's pet seems to make a calling noise, and not long after, hundreds of the fierce creatures rise from the sea. Knowing what's coming, Gruner urges Friend to help shoot the creatures, but Friend freezes in fear and is unable to act.
Come on! Shoot!
The next morning, furious with friends in action, Gruner warns him not to be a burden on the island. He tells Friend that all the supplies given would be wasted if he doesn't help. Later that night, Gruner gives Friend one last chance to help. But once the creatures arrive, Gruner abandons him without warning. It's unclear why he does this, but the next morning when he checks, Gruner is surprised to find Friend still alive, though covered in blood. After this event, Gruner and Friend begin to coexist, fending off the creatures together day by day. Over time, the reason Friend took this job is finally revealed. He simply wanted peace and solitude, but even on a remote island, he found himself in a kind of hell filled with monsters. Friend still has questions, like why the creatures only appear at night, and why they come when the female emits her roar. Gruner offers no clear answer, only saying that to the creatures, humans are nothing more than intruders on this island. One day after returning from gathering wood at his old house, Friend discovers a whale skeleton washed up on the beach. He takes a small piece of the whale bone and begins carving it. Weeks pass, and the creatures no longer attack them. At first, Friend believes they may have given up, but Gruner disagrees, saying the monsters are likely regrouping and will return in even greater numbers. As time goes on, Friend grows increasingly close to Gruner's pet creature, whom he names Anaris. This growing bond begins to spark jealousy in Gruner. One night during a game of chess, Friend shares an idea. He suggests they could capture Anaris and take her to Britain or America to make a fortune. Gruner becomes irritated, especially when Friend defeats him in the game. In a fit of anger, Gruner grabs his rifle and fires toward the balcony. It turns out they are under attack again, having forgotten to turn on the lighthouse beacon. Overwhelmed by a larger swarm than usual, the two retreat to the top floor, which is protected by glass. During the assault, one of the creatures manages to injure Gruner's leg, but they manage to survive until morning. The next day, they realize they won't last much longer. Their food and ammo are running low and hope begins to fade. Then, one day while on the beach, Friend spots a ship in the distance. He grabs a flare and prepares to signal it, but just as he's about to fire, Gruner stops him, leading to a physical struggle. During the fight, Anaris appears to help Friend but can't bring herself to defy Gruner, so she remains helpless. Gruner declares that he doesn't want any newcomers to the island, a sentiment Friend finds absurd. After all, who in their right mind would want to stay on this island full of terrifying creatures? The next morning, Friend follows Anaris as she runs out of the lighthouse. He finds her crying among the whale bones. Upon closer inspection, he realizes she was beaten by Gruner because of what happened the previous day. Trying to comfort her, Friend gives her the whale bone carving, a small sailboat. Seeing the boat triggers something in Anaris, and she leads Friend to a hidden location where an old, stranded boat lies. Realizing it might still be seaworthy, Friend rushes to tell Gruner about the discovery. However, Gruner already knows about the boat. He explains that it came from a Portuguese ship that wrecked in a storm near the island. Gruner also found several crates of dynamite that had washed ashore, but they had been water damaged and were no longer usable. Still, Friend believes there might be more dynamite left in the sunken ship and proposes they dive to retrieve it. He believes this could be their chance to destroy the monsters, but Gruner rejects the idea, calling it far too dangerous. One day, while Friend was painting the stranded boat, he suddenly heard Anaris's voice in the distance. When he went to check, he saw the creature happily bathing. Friend then joined Anaris in the water, unaware that Gruner was secretly spying on them from behind the rocks. After witnessing this, Gruner had a change of heart and agreed to Friend's idea of diving down to retrieve the dynamite. Together, they sailed to the sunken ship using a small boat. Once they reached the site, Friend dove into the water and managed to locate and attach a rope to 3 crates filled with dynamite. While underwater, Friend had the eerie feeling of being watched. Sure enough, a few small creatures suddenly appeared, startling him. Gruner, hoping Friend would die down there, deliberately didn't pull him back up. Luckily, Friend managed to remove his diving armor and swam back to the surface. With the dynamite retrieved, they began placing the explosives around the building just as snow started to fall, marking the arrival of winter. Days went by as they waited, but after 3 weeks, the creatures still didn't attack. Gruner began to lose patience and accused Anaris of being a spy for her kind. Refusing to give up, Gruner devised a new plan. He would lure the creatures into the lighthouse and ambush them, but even after setting everything up, the monsters still didn't show. Determined, Gruner brought Anaris to the balcony and forced her to call out to her kin. Eventually, the creatures appeared in large numbers and attacked. The next morning, when they woke up, they found the ground around the lighthouse littered with the bodies of dead creatures. Gruner took the opportunity to go outside and confirm that the monsters were really dead. During this time, Friend noticed that one of the creatures was wearing a necklace that looked man-made, filling him with guilt. That night, the haunting cries of grief from the remaining creatures echoed from the beach. The following day, Friend, while walking by the beach, spotted two young monsters swimming. This reminded him of the stone formations he had seen when he first arrived on the island. He realized that those stones were likely part of a children's game played by the monster offspring. Moved by this, Friend decided to recreate the stone circle and placed his carved sailboat in the center of it. The next day, noticing that Gruner was fast asleep, Friend went through some of Gruner's belongings. By accident, he found a photograph of Gruner with his late wife, and she looked exactly like the woman in the photo that had belonged to the previous weather observer. At that moment, Friend realized the truth. Gruner was actually the weather observer he was meant to replace. Gruner had lied about his identity so he wouldn't be retrieved or replaced, because he had grown comfortable living on the island. From there, Friend went to the place where he had built the children's game with stones. When he arrived, he saw a young monster approaching him. Not long after, Anaris also appeared, along with dozens of other creatures. But suddenly, a gunshot rang out, startling everyone. Friend pleaded with Gruner not to harm the creatures anymore. He firmly believed they had come in peace, only seeking reconciliation. According to Friend, both he and Gruner had been wrong all along in how they treated these beings. Gruner tried to force Anaris to go home, but she refused. Frustrated, Gruner returned to the lighthouse. However, instead of realizing his mistakes, he fired a flare toward the group of monsters. The flare struck the young creature, killing it. Devastated, Friend went to confront Gruner. The two ended up in a brutal fistfight. Cornered, Friend finally revealed Gruner's true identity, Aldor Vigeland, the weather observer he was supposed to replace. Hearing this left Gruner stunned. He walked away silently, overcome with sorrow, and opened the door to leave. Months later, a ship captain and his crew arrived at the lighthouse to look for Gruner, intending to replace the weather observer, Friend. But when they woke Friend, he didn't deny being Gruner. Instead, he claimed that the real officer had died of typhoid. At that point, it seemed Friend had come to understand everything Gruner had experienced. And through that, he finally found the peace he had always been searching for. The scene ends with Anaris looking upset, believing that Friend might leave. She then jumps into the sea, and the story ends. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.